All right, hey, welcome to The Prize. I'm your host, Danny Sigelman here, episode number 7. Wow, this is a big one. Fittingly enough for the number 7, we talk Prince for a good long time with my friend, Prince's friend, Eloy Lasanta, hosts an amazing show on YouTube called Prince's Friend. I definitely recommend you check it out if you're a fan. Everything you would want to know about Prince. I mean, we get into some minutia here about the man, as we're both huge fans of Prince, and I actually got to talk to Eloy the day after I went out to Paisley Park to pay a little tribute to Prince. They had the atrium open where you could see his urn and spend a little time paying respects as it's been 5 years since he passed. Also, this interview happened the day after the Derek Chauvin trial here in the Twin Cities, which was met with a bit of relief amid all the frustration and anxiety and all the issues surrounding the death of George Floyd. A little bit of progress felt was made, and to have that coincide with remembering Prince on that day, I felt was sort of fitting, especially when you consider just how much we could use him during this time to further and inspire and unite Minneapolis like he always did. Eloy's a really great guy. I mean, we get deep and we talk Prince. We go through my record collection a little bit, and also talk about Strays of the World, which is a musical project that Eloy has started during quarantine. He's just finished a record, which is great. It's his first endeavor, and it's very ambitious. I mean, this record goes all over the place, as we discuss, and he was able to share a track with us, so we'll be hearing that as well. I first discovered Eloy's Prince's Friend show doing some research on Prince. Since then, I tapped him to be involved in a book project, which I was working on with the Minnesota Historical Society Press, and had him kind of give some of his knowledge on some of the records that were highlighted in this book. It's a collection of photographs from Alan Bolio, and this came out in 2018, which Eloy came up for, and I was able to meet in person then, and we remained friends, so it was really cool to just hunker down and spend some more time with him and hear what he's all about. So with that, enjoy the show. It's like a Prince triple album episode of The Prize. We go on for a couple of hours here. I hope you enjoy it. Take it in bits if you have to, and make sure you check out Strays of the World and check out Prince's Friend on YouTube, and just enjoy what Eloy brings to the world of Prince and what we talk about here. It's a really fun one. So we will see you on the other side.
All right, a couple things before we get the show going here. An update. I got some important information about the Purple Playground Gangster Glam Party, which, when I talked to Eloy, had been canceled because of the roller skating rink closing. It's happening June 7th at Skateland in Burnsville. It's the Purple Playground Gangster Glam New World Skate Party. Myself and Dudley D, the man, is going to be DJing. I get to live out my childhood dream of playing vinyl records in a roller skating rink on Prince Day. I'm so excited to celebrate and party with y'all. So we will see you there. It's on Facebook. If you want to dial that up and invite yourself to the party, it's going to be a lot of fun. Me and DJ Dudley D in the house. And one last thing, I want to thank my man Eloy, Prince's Friend, for coming through with the technology on this episode. As you'll see, my connection was horrible, but we got through it, and he was able to record the conversation for me. I'm a little bit of a Luddite on this computer stuff, but it turned out really good. It's a great discussion. I'm going to give it to you now, uninterrupted. Enjoy. Thank you again, Prince's Friend. Check him out, and we will see you the next time on The Prize. Thanks for hanging out with us. Check out the new release, In My Head, from artist Strays of the World. Our special guest here on The Prize, Eloy Lasanta, host of Prince's Friend on YouTube, and now his new musical project, Strays of the World. And you can find them online We are all Strays on Twitter and Strays of the World on Facebook. In My Head, now available on Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you can find great music on the internet. Enjoy the music.
What do you call what you do? I mean, do you call it a show or a web show or a...
I mean, I guess it's called a channel. Like, you know, it's like it's a YouTube channel. I am actually is what I do. There's other terms for it, like influencer and stuff like that. I actually really hate the term influencer, and I don't like to think of myself as a YouTuber, which is the other terrible term that people throw around. I like YouTube host. You know, it's almost like I'm a host of my own show, my own TV show, and it makes me, I don't know, it feels a little less smarmy.
Well, whatever we want to call it, I guess we'll just introduce you now to the 5 people that might be watching my YouTube. Hey. I kind of call it like a zine, you know, like when I was a kid, we'd have to make these punk rock zines and they would take a while. So a lot of what I do is I'll add stuff, and I usually do like a little vinyl find thing at the beginning of this, and then you're the special guest. So Eloy Lasanta, how are you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me on, Danny. Like honestly, I'm kind of excited.
I mean, you've likely been on some other programs or podcasts and whatnot.
Oh my God. I love going on podcasts as guests. Cause again, like I said, like I get to show up and talk and then I don't have to do any of the back end stuff. And I'm totally good with that.
No, that is cool. And it's kind of funny. I feel like since I started doing this, I'm more likely to talk to people while I'm hosting them than I would otherwise, you know, especially people that aren't in the same community or out of state or something. So it gives us, it kind of kills a lot of birds with one stone when we get to catch up, make a show out of it, and then kind of keep rolling. And it's really cool because I think being a social person during the pandemic, I'm sure this is one of the best outlets for you to stay connected to people.
Yeah, I mean, video chat it has been the saving grace of I think for a lot of people. You know, for me, like I am an extroverted introvert. I really don't mind being alone most of the time, but every so often I need like a burst of interactivity. And then I'm actually good being alone for a little bit. You know, it's like I'm good. Like I'm mostly by myself. I mean, and I have my kids and my family and stuff, but like the best moments are when, you know, my wife says, "Oh, I'm going to go hang out with my friend tonight and the kids are at your mom's." And I'm like, "Oh, I get to even do nothing that night." Like I like having some alone time. I've barely had any alone time, I would say, for at least the last 15 years. So no, it's a cool outlet. I feel like it's a great way. It's really weird for me right now to actually have you respond to me because there's a lot of times I'll be watching you talk, but you're talking to so many people, and now it's like, wow, he's actually talking to me. You know, like So thanks for coming and doing this with me today. Of course, man. Of course. I mean, we're already friends. We already know each other, so it helps. You know, it wasn't like, who's this guy asking me? Who is this guy? Who's like, no, like we're good. I know you.
And we can talk about our connection for sure. But I did happen to watch your live chat yesterday, so I thought we'd maybe just kind of pick up right there. But I also want you to tell people a little bit more about who you are and what you do. But first question, what did you think of the Metallica cover?
Okay, so this was my thing. I actually went and watched it because of
you were talking about that the whole time. I'm like, dude, don't even bother. I was like trying to tell you, like, you know.
No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I understand what it is, right? It's I don't remember the bassist's name because I'm a terrible person, but it's Kirk Hammett, the bassist, Robert. Okay, so it's the two of them. It was probably while, you know, the other two members of the band are taking a break. Like,
Yeah.
and like, you know, it's the two of them. They're like, let's entertain the crowd. Let's do a fun song. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the best Metallica has ever done. And it's just a fun, like, let's sing a Prince song. Let's have some freaking fun with it. And I'm like, I got what they were putting down. I got the energy, and that made me enjoy it. Cause I was like, I'm having fun with it because they were having fun with it. I mean, musically, I mean, it wasn't the best, but I mean, it is what it is, right? Like,
yeah, it's rough. And I mean, I speak about it having been, I was there.
Oh, really?
And I'm a big Metallica fan, and you know, following them throughout their tour that year, they do that in every town, and they pay homage to each city that they're in, or each country.
Okay.
So, you know, especially in Europe, when they're playing these, like Croatia or something, they'll play like some weird Croatian punk rock band that nobody's ever heard of, but like, you know, so it requires them to prepare and dig a little bit. And, you know, and they played in London, they played a Oasis song, and it's just a part of the set where they kind of throw something together that's unique. So knowing that was going to happen, I was like, well, what are they going to do here? Are they going to do Prince? Are they going to do a replacement song? Are they going to dig deep and play like some obscure 80s metal band from the Twin Cities? Like, who knows? And I figured they would do Prince, but I was kind of expecting maybe Kirk to shine and really go for like a Let's Go Crazy guitar solo, or basically
they ended it a little bit with the Let's Go Crazy groove, but not with the crazy guitar solo like I was expecting. And honestly, they didn't even start it off with the like I would have expected, like Kirk Hammett, like, come on, let's knock that out, right? It's like,
and I mean, you wonder how these things get put together. I mean, they're probably flying here and there, and maybe exchanging tracks and trying to find the tab online or whatever. I will just tell you that when that happened at the show, it was like somebody dropped a turd in the punch bowl. I mean, it was rough.
I could tell though. I could tell because even in the video, like the crowd is not responding that well.
Yeah, they said, "Come on, everybody, sing along," and we're like, "I can't even tell what they're doing right away." And you know, and the joke, of course, was like, Robert picked a song that didn't actually have any bass in it. So like, you think he would have maybe gone somewhere else with that.
Yeah. I don't think that I don't know if those two fan bases cross-pollinate that much either too.
I think, honestly, everybody here at least knows, you know, they know the music. There's a lot of love for Prince. I mean, myself, I'm a huge Prince fan, obviously, and a huge Metallica fan. So yeah, it was just kind of funny, and it literally kind of put a stain on the rest of the night in a weird way. But it is what it is. I mean, you know, I was sitting in the press box, and we all kind of looked at each other like, really, did that just happen? You know, like,
honestly, it looked like Kurt didn't even necessarily enjoy himself, but it seemed like Robert was really enjoying himself. So
He, I will say when they played here previous to that, it might have been a couple years before that. They played at the new Viking Stadium, which is the U.S. Bank Stadium. And during Rob's solo, he threw in a little bit of Erotic City on bass. And I think I was the only one that even noticed it at the time.
Oh, wow.
Like, so, you know, it is what it is. But
it was him. He was the one who was like, we're going to do this then.
Yeah. But anyway, we got a cool history, I think, because I did kind of discover your channel via doing some of my own research. And short story for anybody that's listening, I was writing a story about the Love Symbol album at that time. I don't remember exactly what anniversary it was, but there wasn't a ton of information about the Love Symbol album at the time. This was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I stumbled upon your episode about it, and I got a lot of insight that maybe I wasn't aware of outside of my own impression of the album, and it was super helpful in that way, which is, I think, the purpose of your show. to be informative and educational, but also to kind of put stuff in a really unique context, which is what I've always loved about the show. So tell me how you came about from being a fan to becoming Prince's friend online. I mean, what was the progression for that? Was it a long progression, or was it something you just jumped right into?
I mean, I don't know. I guess at this point, as of last year, I've been listening to Prince for 30 years because I started listening to him when I was 11, and I am now 41. So there you go, 30 years officially. No, so I mean, essentially, I've been listening to him for 30 years. Never wanted for any music. He's always an album, always something to listen to, always having a great time with his music. And when he passed, obviously yesterday being the 5-year anniversary, when he passed, I decided to go online, and because I live in a place with zero Prince fan community sort of thing. So I was like, well, let me go on YouTube, and I just kind of started sharing about my love of Prince, and this was my story, and here's my thoughts on this album and that album. Here's some news that's happening because, of course, after Prince passed, his name was just all over the news then at that point. Essentially it just became, I was just started kind of talking about my love of Prince because it was, kind of in an act of mourning and trying to reach out and trying to find other people to kind of connect with in that way. And, as time went on, it turned out that a lot of other people were also looking for the same thing. They find that in the channel that I have, and, they connect with me on, I believe, the level of a friend. And some people misconstrue the name of the channel, obviously, of Prince's friend. I never knew Prince or anything, but in the 90s, which was when I was big into Prince, I started with Graffiti Bridge and then went on from there. But in the 90s, he said, I don't like the name fans. It's short for fanatic, and I don't need to be surrounded by fanatics. I think of the people who listen to my music as friends. So I was always like, okay, cool. Well, then I'm a Prince friend. And then when I started the channel, I thought Prince friend sounded dumb, so I made it Prince's friend, which I was like, okay, that's a little catchier. And it's one of those weird things that, like, I think it definitely works as a title, but if I had to go back in time, I don't know if I would have selected it knowing that it would have created this weird air of like people thinking that I'm claiming something that I'm not, that sort of thing.
Right.
But I mean, it works for marketing purposes. It's really good. Like, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the misconception of me being Prince's friend also then gets people to come. And then I explain to them that I'm not actually, I never knew him or anything. And then it works out. It's funny too, because I've talked to people who have known Prince, and not even just the alum or anything. Like, I've just talked to people who just knew Prince, just like generally. And, they all seem to, get what I'm doing and accept me. And, so like, as soon as I talked to them and they were just like, oh, okay, I get it. And like, so, you do your thing, man. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, cause I'm not trying to piss anybody off,
Right.
So anyway, long story short, I talk about Prince on my channel, and I do like music reviews and song discussions and stuff like that. Like, I talk about just Prince and his legacy and like his messages and, the news again surrounding the estate and whatnot. Like, that's what I do. Like,
that stuff is great.
I already am that guy. I think I talked about that in my live stream yesterday, where like, I am already that guy that if you try to talk to me, I'm going to insert Prince somewhere into that conversation. So I might as well just have an outlet for that, just generally.
Get it out of your system.
That's what my YouTube channel is. So,
is there a day that goes by that you don't talk to Prince or don't talk about Prince or listen to him? Or, I mean, every day has Prince.
Oh my God. It's really weird. There are some days that I don't listen to his music. And those days are usually when I am making music, because I don't want to be weirdly influenced too much, so like, when I'm making my own music, I try to like get in my own little bubble in my, in my own head and just try to figure out what I'm trying to do in that moment. But if I throw on Prince, I'll be like, "Ooh, that was cool." Let me like, oh, wait, I can't. I'm not gonna copy. I'm not gonna copy Prince's lick there or anything.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably the only exception. Otherwise, yeah, I listen to like at least a song a day, and my kids like Prince, so that helps. So they'll be like, "Daddy, play this song." I'll be like, "I mean, you asked for it,
So when did you actually start the show then?
I started it like a month after he passed.
So it's been about 5 years.
Yeah. So yeah, my channel, I think it's like May something. So yeah, so like, when we get into next month is when I'll hit my 5-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And we're over 27,000, which a lot of that growth was in the first few years. And then, since then it, tapered off. I get a few, but it's cool. I'm mostly just, that's the thing, right? It's like, I don't do it for the subs and all that stuff. Like, I'd be doing this even if I have some other smaller channels that don't have as big a following, and I still devote just as much time to those, so it's, I just like talking about the things that I love. So, yeah.
And your other channels are what's some of the interests that you have outside of Prince?
My other one channel that I have is called MPQ Mastery, and it's where I talk about I play Marvel Puzzle Quest. It's a mobile game, and I freaking love that game, and I love to come up with the different strategies and all that stuff. So I make videos about it because, why not? And then I have one. My other channel is called The Turnout, and that's where I do like my TV and movie reviews. And basically my non-Prince geekery stuff, that's where I go for that. But and it's good to have those outlets. I also have one called Eloy the Saint, that's where my gaming stuff, because my day job is that I'm a game designer, so like I go there and I talk about my games and I run some actual plays and stuff like that. So so I have a lot of different YouTube channels, and they're all like different, but Prince's Friend is my biggest one.
I was going to ask you, because I knew you were a game designer. You've talked about that. You ever think about designing a Prince game?
I have. The problem with it is that I would want to do it in an authentic way that didn't try to make it into a joke or anything, or try to make it into a gimmick or anything. Like I've seen like when he passed, D&D like released artwork of like their bard, and it was like a dude in like leather armor but looked like Prince, and I'm like, that's cool, like that's that's a nice tribute from D&D. But at the same time, it's just like, but how would I make an authentic like Prince game that's not just look at the funny outfits and look at the makeup and it would obviously have to be like, how could you use music to save the world, that sort of thing. But then and within what context does that work and stuff. I have definitely thought about it. I've thought about it for years. I have yet to come up with a good way to do it that sits right with me as a designer and as somebody who again, wouldn't want to just use Prince's, message and stuff in a flippant way. You know what I mean? I would want it to be something, monumental, something that would mean something, and would have, would be respectful of, Prince. So it is definitely something that I have thought about, though, I will say.
I mean, it seems to be like if you thought of the right combination of what you thought would be cool, you could pitch it to the estate and actually make it a thing.
Oh my God. Like, see, that would be the dream. That would be really awesome. Like, to make it an official Prince RP.
Yeah. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's stuff that you could do like with D&D, how they're like, well, then we'll just have this bard that kind of looks like Prince. That's a way that you can kind of get around it, but too much, and then you're asking for problems.
I think at the end of the day, if you had your druthers, you'd want it to be like official,
of course.
And I think what would be kind of cool is what I think about a lot is and you talked about it, is Prince as a sage, as almost kind of a character or a vision or a spiritual entity that is absolutely beyond who he was now, because that's all we have is what's out there, and creating maybe kind of a mythology. I can't think of many artists that did create their own mythology to an extent that Prince did.
Little, actually.
So all the characters in his song. What's that?
I said, yeah, I'm agreeing. Yes.
Yeah. Whether it's the characters in his songs or his the themes that he goes back to so often, I think paints so much about what I think a lot of people miss when they only kind of know who Prince is. And that sort of differentiates the fam from the people that are just kind of like fans of the music.
Right.
And I think what you do a lot that I really appreciate is I hadn't heard people talk about it the way you have on your show in that regard. And so finding a way to kind of incorporate all that into a character that's in a video game, I think could be challenging, but really cool.
I think it could be cool. Yeah.
The Oracle of Prince or whatever. But I did get to go to Paisley yesterday. I think I told you about that. Yeah, it was nice. In lieu of celebration this year, they invited fans to come out and basically just kind of have a moment in the atrium, which I'd never been in. And I saw the urn and everything, and what was around for gold records in that room was pretty cool and impressive. It was a nice moment for me. Listen, this week, this month, this year, really, in Minneapolis has been a really tough one, as I'm sure you know. And to kind of be able to come to terms with current events in the way they could have unfolded, and sort of the solace I found just going out there and paying my respects, I thought was really nice. And it was great that Paisley did that. And there was maybe 20 people in our group, and then basically every 20 minutes was another group so all day people were going through. So it was understandable that they didn't necessarily make it all a big tour for everybody. But I still need
knew
to
that
take
they were going to open it. Yeah.
And you did the tour before in the past?
Yeah, I went to the 2018 and 19 celebrations. And when you go to celebration, they include the tour. So, the first time I did the tour was where I got to, be all sad and cry and all that stuff. And then honestly, the second time was I was there and I kind of checked out the records, and I was like, I've seen actually a lot of this already before because, I did it before. So I started talking with the tour guides and like making friends, and like I know a bunch of them now because they're really cool people, so like like I just kind of used that time, since I had already done the tour, to do something else, which talk to people. That's why I go to places like Celebration and stuff like that, is because I want to go there and I want to connect with the other friends. I want to make new friends. Like that's why I go. So it's honestly, Celebration is so good, and even without Celebration, I'm sure that Paisley Park was very enjoyable. You don't need to go. It doesn't have to be a tour, even the atrium by itself, but like, man, like that's like that would be the dream. Like I saw like, what was it, like a year or so ago, like Beck went and recorded in Paisley. And I was like, that's like the dream. I would love to like eventually record in Paisley Park. Like it would just be so amazing.
Yeah, that would be cool. I wonder if that'll become more of a thing at some point. I'm not sure how much they rent it out for other artists to record right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know Prince did, because when Prince would like be out of the state, like in Spain and doing all the stuff, he'd be like, yeah, go use it. Like there's a part of the tour is there's a whole wall of all these amazing albums that were recorded in Paisley Park. So
yeah, and I forgot that like REM had recorded there, and I think there was a Stevie Wonder record maybe at some point. Yeah, no, it was cool. I to be honest, I was pretty apprehensive at first to go on the tour because I just thought it was too soon. The way they opened up Paisley at that point in time, it kind of just I tend to wait for things to kind of find their form, and it seems like they've kind of got a good thing going, and I look forward to doing it someday. I did go to a show there a couple years ago. They had like the Women of Prince concert.
I missed that one. I really wanted to go to that one.
Yeah, it was like a 8-hour thing, man. I mean, it was everybody. It was Donna Grantis and Sheila headline, and Judith Hill,
and Shelby
everybody
was there. Yeah, I think it was like everybody. I remember because I was like, oh man, can I make this work? And can I afford a ticket to go and all that stuff? I'm like, you're a little bit lucky that you live there. And you're so close to it. Like, if I want to go to a show at Paisley, that also involves a $350 plane ticket. So
yeah, I know. Well, I think last time I saw you here, I was like, so when are you going to move to Minneapolis? I mean, wouldn't that make the most sense for Prince's friend?
I did talk to my wife about it, and we even looked at houses. Like a couple of years ago, we were looking at like the pricing of houses and stuff like that, and it just turned out that we were just like, nah, it gets too cold up there. So.
Yeah, come here in February sometime or January, and you're in a good place, but. Definitely growing up here and coming up as sort of a punk rock hip hop kid when I was younger, you always paid attention to what Prince was doing. And and at a certain point in time, I think I just kind of lost a little bit of interest, and I kind of thought a lot of what he was doing was pretty cheesy or just not really my bag at that point in time. And all these shows that would happen. You didn't know when he would go on and this and that. Right. And there's an element in the Twin Cities, especially if you've been in kind of the industry like I have, that there was a lot of Prince resentment that I looking back, especially when he died, I looked back and it really made me think about the humanity of somebody like him and how much I missed out on because of the block that I kind of put in place because of his reputation. Warranted or not, I deprived myself of a lot of experience out of that sort of negativity that was so easy to latch onto. And what I get most out of listening to Prince and thinking about him or experiences like going to Paisley yesterday is sort of trying to bridge the gap within myself of forgiveness or finding the humanity in it, and that to me is the gift that he left. What do you feel about that kind of stuff? I mean, everybody has a Prince story that is not always. He was human, of course. But is there any conflict that you feel with how maybe he sometimes did treat people and the overall aspect of your love for Prince? Is there anything you struggle with or think about?
I mean, I wouldn't say yes necessarily. I mean, there's always things that you hear like Prince did this or Prince did that. But I feel like there's the need to separate, the man from the myth, if you will. It's like Prince was not like, to me, Prince was the music. And Prince was the message, the positivity. That's what Prince was. That's what he always put out there. And then, you hear stories of like, if you read all these autobiographies from all the people who are coming out, and like, if you read Morris Days and it's just like, nah, dude, Prince was kind of a jerk sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, he kind of was. But that doesn't change my love of the music,
Right.
So, I mean, so for me, I don't think that it affects me. I understand how it would affect other people. Even if it doesn't change my opinions, I do understand if somebody did feel that. Now, when it comes to kind of the, that Prince resentment sort of thing, that kind of started in the 90s and just kind of went on. And, the fact that also then at that point, there was also that point where Prince started doing his own marketing and his own distribution and all of that stuff. So, you have to think about it, right? It's like Prince was this huge thing. and then everybody thought he kind of went away, and then he came back, and then he changed his name, and then while he changed his name, he's also bad mouthing and he's starting fights, and he's like refusing interviews, and he's like making a spectacle of everything, and then he gets freed from his contract. And if you at that point were not following Prince, to you, Prince disappeared.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the thing, until 1999, where everybody started talking about him again because he had a song called 1999. Obviously, I don't know if you've heard that one, but yeah, he had a song. So that one came out. Then he disappeared again, came back in 2004 with Musicology. That one actually made a little bit more of a splash. And then he disappeared again, and never released any other music after 2004, or that's what I've heard.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's the average Joe's perception of Prince. I think what I'm trying to get at is sort of the discovery. He's the ultimate Gemini, right? There's that duality and that yin yang of sort of like being a highly loving, caring person, but then also kind of this darkness that was there and maybe followed him to the end. And I feel like I've learned a lesson from thinking about it that way, because nobody's perfect. And for as high a bar as he put for himself, I think he made things difficult by being so great. So it's just a human exercise in thinking about him these different ways. I think it's very valuable, and that's one of the best lessons I can take from his life. Outside of all the great music,
I'd agree with that. I mean, I think that there's already a if you listen to his music, then you kind of know what's happening inside of him. And like even though like a lot of the time he'll put like a fancy bow on something, it wasn't even until like just a couple of years ago that I was really sitting down and listening to Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic, the album that came out in 1999. And I was literally sitting there and I was listening to the order of the tracks, and I was listening to the words and each song and all that stuff. And I'm like, wow, this whole album was him dealing with his divorce that he was going through at that moment. And it's so crazy because it's got like So Far So Please, la la la, and like got all these like really like kind of happy sounding songs and stuff on it, and then it's got some really kind of depressing stuff, but it's a good mix. But if you don't know what's happening, it's just a good album. But to find out the timeline of it, that it lined up and that was him expressing his dissatisfaction with his current marriage, like that's kind of interesting stuff. But that extends into his later albums, where like I was listening to I listened to 2014's Artificial Age, and I was like, this is kind of like, it's it's happy and like it's got some good stuff on there, but I'm like, I don't know, it's hard to say because like he died shortly after that album. He released a couple albums and then he died, and then I went back to that album and I'm like, it was like that album was almost like him saying, like, not be around that much longer. Like it's one of those really kind of scary things that I'm like, wow, did everybody miss the warning signs that like he was saying it, like in his music, it's there, I agree. And it's something that, again, it's kind of like with Rave Unto. It's like, I didn't notice it until way after the fact,
Yeah. It's interesting how that bleakness is there. And he's for every aspect of Prince that you think he's not so vulnerable, he's kind of putting on this facade and being this extra macho and sexy guy. There's a very, very close to the surface is something that's bleak and maybe somewhat something to do with insecurity, but also just being very naked, very real. I think that's why it does feel really powerful when you start to reflect on it. And those are the gifts he's left us to kind of evaluate our own humanity. One thing I think about in terms of what you're saying about almost how he knew it was going to happen, to me, it's really interesting that he performed his last concert by himself, but then also essentially passed on by himself. You know, there's some very dark poetry in both those aspects. And you know, I've seen interviews. I think when Chaka Khan just talked about what a lonely person he kind of was. And I think that does come out in the music and some of the stories he tells.
So, and I think I had done a review. They did like a Reels movie about him and stuff. And I remember that there were a whole bunch of other people who were like, he was such a lonely guy. Like, that was just who he was. And I'm like, it's weird, right? Because I think we all project our own ideas onto that.
Yeah, of course.
And then I think about myself, where we started off this conversation with me saying I'm an introverted extrovert, or an extroverted introvert. So like when I'm alone, like people are like, oh man, he's just always alone and he's always just so quiet and he's always just so alone. And I'm like, maybe he likes that. Like it doesn't, like, you might not like that, but it might be something that he enjoyed. I remember in that where somebody was just like, they were looking at pictures of him riding his bike and he was just like, and the person, I don't remember who it was speaking, but they were like, it was almost like he was reverting back to his childhood where he grew his hair out long and then he was riding his bike. And I'm like, or he just wanted to ride his bike. Like, come on, people.
Yeah.
Somebody just ride a bike. If I go ride a bike, am I a child again? Am I trying to recapture my childhood? Like, it just, I feel like there's a lot of projection when it comes to that sort of thing, and I do that too. Like a lot of the stuff that I talk about on my channel is like my interpretation of a thing based on my own experience. So I understand the idea of projection. I do it all the time.
But, I mean, ultimately we're going to be.
No, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, ultimately we're always going to be really analytical about it now because he's not here. So,
right.
So yeah, there's a lot of give and take in that, and I think it's important to consider it both ways. And ultimately,
and that's why, like, I get the question a lot of people are like, why didn't you start your channel when Prince was alive? And I was like, well, when Prince was alive, I just listened to Prince. Like, I didn't need to do that. Like, it was like I said, like, as soon as he was no longer here, I felt the need to connect with somebody because for so many years, I felt like I connected with Prince on that level, even as just somebody who's never met him. You know, I just listened to the music. People are like, and you never went to a Paisley Park show or anything? And I'm like, I didn't even realize that was an option. I thought Paisley Park was like this castle in the sky, this thing like that. No, that's where Prince lives. Why would I ever think that I would be worthy of going there? You know,
right?
Like, people are like, no, I went to a show there the other day, and I'm like, that's weird to me. Just to think, you know, even when I went on the tour a couple of times, it was odd to be in Prince's place. Like, it was never a place that I ever thought I'd be. I also thought that Prince would outlive everybody. You know, so
100%. Yeah. I mean, I was in that atrium and I was kind of imagining like, okay, he probably walks in this door and then maybe goes over here. And like, I'm just visioning the times I did see him in person, whether it was in concert or out and about, I'm imagining him just moving around in this room the way I always would see him around.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did. Probably my last experience with him, I was working at the Dakota for a minute and a few years, and he loved coming there. I mean, we took care of him and gave him his privacy. There was one time Maceo was playing there, and Prince had a crew. If a show wasn't like totally sold out, he could have the whole upper level. You know, there was like a whole private room up there, and
that's
he
cool.
he had a crew up there with him, and Maceo's on stage burning it up. Maceo knows Prince is up there because the room is dark, but it's full of people. And he burning it up, and Maceo was like, "Come on, man, come on down here. I got a guitar for you. Come on down." And nothing happened, you know. And he's like, "Are you sure? Come on, man, come on down here." And it's just like, okay, he's not going to come down. It was funny. Yeah. But one of the last times I did see him, it was a show with Irma Thomas, who is, kind of the queen of New Orleans soul, and another guy named Lee Fields were playing. And I got to tell Lee Fields, I'm like, I think Prince is here. He's like, hey, and he was so excited to be able to perform for him. But before that, I saw somebody walking around the club, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Somebody brought their daughter to come see Irma Thomas. That's great. Because they were just wearing like sweatpants and kind of a hat. And they got closer to me. I'm like, holy shit. I mean, he was like a foot away from me. And I looked over, and there was this big, huge guy in front of the bathroom waiting for him. And he was just going to go in there. But that night was really fun. It was I'll never forget, kind of the last. Otherwise, I'd see him up there sitting, and you could only see his afro in the dark, basically.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But no, we love Prince here, and I love what you. In a sense, it's really cool that you're not from here, because you don't have some of the baggage maybe somebody like myself had, having to with some of the reputation he had, unfortunately. And I really appreciate how kind of emotional you can get about it. I remember one of the first live chats I saw, I think you were talking about this yesterday.
I did mention it yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. You came home from the concert, and you're like, they just don't understand. You're talking about his later career and how the show at this big stadium was all 80s stuff. And I'm like, dude, we're here. I'm here. I love that. All the stuff. Like not all of us were at the show,
that was actually the and within context, obviously, if you watch my video the following day, was that's how they kind of made it that way. The big spectacle, the big show at the Target Center. That was also like all the people who went to Celebration got a ticket, but it was also general entry. So that was all of it was basically all the hits. They edited all the hits together, and then there you go. But then the next day they brought when at Paisley, the Funk Soldiers went up there, the same band that was there performing with Prince live on the big stage. They went on Paisley stage and did all their songs they do in the big thing, and that made me feel a lot better the next day. But that night I was very much up in my own emotions. I was definitely feeling myself in that video.
I know. I was yelling at the team, come on, man, just you're here, come on, get but do you feel like I know it's a big part of your push is to push his entire career. You seem to kind of developed maybe a little bit of understanding from the casual fans to the hardcore fans to the really deep fans. I mean, I don't think everybody's welcome, of course. So, how has your feelings changed as you've done the channel and more people kind of come in and out from different perspectives and different lives?
The way that I've always said it is that I think we're all at different stages in our Prince musical journey. I get people who are like, I just picked up Diamonds and Pearls and I love it. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait for you to discover the rest of it. I'm not like, oh, you only listen to Diamonds and Pearls. You're such a poser. You're such a loser. No, it's like, that's awesome that you have made that first step. Let me suggest that you go with this album next, and then you can go with this one. And then because I'll talk about stuff on my channel and I'll have people pop up and they'll be like, oh, I feel like such a bad Prince fan because I didn't know that. And I'm like, don't feel bad. Half the stuff I talk about, I just found out yesterday, because I'm constantly searching and delving into these things and trying to find new information. Because, I don't want to just make a video that's like, hey, here's this song, it's good. When I'm going to talk about the thing, I need to be like, well, let me do some deeper research than just what I know from listening to it. And a lot of the time, I find out new little nuggets of everything that I've known and loved for years. And I'll be like, oh, wow, I knew this bits of information about this. I can't wait to share this. So I'm always like that. Now there are a lot of people who will come to me and be like, oh, you weren't there. You weren't there in the beginning. So how could you know how great it was? And I'm like, look, as somebody who, like, people are like, you weren't there during Purple Rain. How dare you say something bad about Purple Rain? And I'm like, okay, you got me. I was only 5 years old during Purple Rain.
Yeah.
It's totally my bad. I should have just been deep in the Prince at 5. But, it's like, for me, like, a lot of the discussion that I get to have about early Prince is more, historical. Like, I know the music. I have listened to it all. I know it word, like, his stuff really great. And but for me, the 80s stuff is not the end all be all. The 80s stuff is exactly what it is. It's the beginning of his entire career. I try not to get stuck in any one part of, his career, which is where a lot of people have that issue. And, I have a character on my channel that I sometimes pull out called Rabid 80s Prince Fan. Where, like, the top 5 songs from Purple Rain are Purple Rain, Purple Rain, Purple Rain, Purple Rain, and Purple Rain. Like stuff like that. Cause I like to poke a little bit of fun, but in the end, like, if that's what you're into, hey, at least you're listening to Prince. Like, it's all good, right? Like,
and it makes sense as time goes on. Some of the deeper catalog stuff starts to, not disappear, but like, I mean, you think about the Beatles, like, people only know maybe 10 Beatles songs. Exactly. They don't necessarily know all the deep cuts. And
exactly. Well, but that's why I'm excited for, like, a lot of people are like, why are they spending all this time reissuing his albums? I already own that. And I'm like, but you don't understand. Like, they're being reissued, and these are albums that Prince distributed himself, which means he didn't do a good job. Like, he was terrible at his own marketing. Like, I mean, I'm just going to be straight up. Like, he was not good at it. So
and working in record stores all during that time, we were always like, what is this? What's going on? Is this new? What is,
exactly.
We would deal with people at Paisley to distribute stuff when I was working at Electric Fetus, and it was always just like, okay, I don't know, we'll put it out there, and the true heads would find it,
Of course.
But there's a certain, when people were buying music, when that was a thing, there was a certain type of person that really needed it to be everywhere, saturated, to get their attention and that kind of thing.
Well, and that was part of what I've always talked about. It's like, a lot of people were like, I just did a video recently on my channel called Album Sales Are Everything, where I'm kind of talking about, like, the fallacy that, if you didn't sell a lot of albums, then that music must not be worth it.
Right.
And that it was like a 15-minute video. I won't rehash it all here, but, essentially I compared 2 albums. I was like, what if you have this, like, worldwide acclaimed, had a movie, had so many #1 hits and all that stuff, and then the next album after that sold a fraction of the stuff, and a lot of record stores didn't even want to carry it and all that stuff. And I was talking about Sign of the Times and Love Sexy. Now, is Love Sexy not as good an album, even though it sold only 1/3 as many copies as Sign of the Times? No. Oh my God, I love Love Sexy. Like, Love Sexy is in my top 5 Prince albums easy. And Sign of the Times is not up in my top 5, so that should tell you something.
Wow, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, no. Well, okay. So here's the thing. Here's how I always explain it to everybody. Mm-hmm. I got into Prince from Graffiti Bridge. Okay.
Right.
So I listened to Graffiti Bridge and I said, that's what I want. Give me more of that. So when I delved back into his catalog, I'm like, all right, this is funky and this is cool and stuff, but when is it going to get to the thing that I got into this for? Love Sexy is when that happened. And I'm like, yes, this is it. This is when he started this new sound that I love so much. And then he continued on, for the rest of his career, because there was that pivotal moment at Love Sexy where he kind of decided, he's like, I'm not going to do the stuff I've been doing. And he lost a lot of people, but he gained me. So if nothing else,
he changed everything. His look. I mean,
exactly.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, ultimately, it's always about how you get into something. I mean, I listen to so much different kinds of music. I'm never one to hold a bar up to, like, require something of somebody to be a real fan or not. Right. I mean, a lot of fans of different bands, it can be that way.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm not a big. I'm like I said. I always just say we're on different parts. You know, different lengths of our Prince journey. You know, like I'm pretty far ahead, but guess what? There are people who are further than me. Like
Right.
I'm not a know-it-all. Like I said, half the videos I make is because I just learned something and I want to talk about it. It's not like I know everything already, you know. So
And that being said, there are some diehard Prince fans where you're just like, okay, I'm gonna go over here now. You know, like
oh my gosh,
they're so deep
yes, and
into
they're
it.
all in my comment section.
So you ride a nice fine line between casual and diehard, and I think that's what people really appreciate about your show. Yeah. So I thought what we do is a little show and tell, and what I want to do is I'm going to just show you stuff and then have you, whatever comes to mind. This is all Prince, somewhat Prince related stuff. But I want to talk to you quickly about Strays of the World. Your music project. Yeah.
Yes.
So a little teaser about how we'll wrap this up. But I did listen to it a lot, and you know, it's great. Let me find my notes. Now, I think of you as being kind of this fun-loving, very cherubic kind of Buddhist-style, fun-loving guy, and then I'm hearing lyrics like "drinking the mercury to the mystery to all you should leave behind." I mean, what's going on with this? This music is a little dark, I would say.
Okay, so what I'll say to that is that song is a cover, actually.
Oh, it is.
Ava Adore is the only song on there that I didn't write.
Who did that song?
That's a Smashing Pumpkins song.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I don't remember that song by then.
Oh my God, it was really good. But it was also after kind of their heyday. Their heyday with Melancholy and Infinite Sadness was where everybody got to know them. Ava Adore's off of the album after that, which was not as big. So that song, but it is on there for a reason, obviously. Like kind of the whole second half of the album is a little bit darker, a little bit more depressing. You know, and then it ends on a happy note. You know, that's the idea. But no, you're right though. It's different too when you know, the way that I conduct myself just in my personal life and stuff. It's weird because it's hard to write a song about being zen and happy-go-lucky and and have it not be, you know, cheesy. So what I did, you know, like those are just 12 songs, 11 of them I wrote, but like I wrote easily 35, maybe 40 songs.
Oh, wow.
Just, you know, at varying levels of, you know, progress,
completion,
you know, completion. And some of those will be songs for the next album because I already have some of them like almost done. But, you know, the album tells a little bit of a story. And, you know, it kind of does lead you. You'll notice, too, that the album starts hard and ends kind of on a more laid back kind of feel. You know, like all of that is very purposeful in its approach. And I've even had some people give me the feedback of like I started the album and you almost lost me in the first part. And I'm just like, I get that. However, those songs are there for a reason. If you're not into, you know, the harder rock, then I can understand why you'd be like, ooh, I didn't really like those. All right, fair enough. But if you keep listening, you know, it diverges and it goes in a lot of different directions. But anyway, so some of it is a little dark. You know, like there's a lot of interesting tracks on there, like So Numb that follows Ava Adore is also kind of on the depressing side of things.
Yeah.
But I mean, but it's all real. All those things are things that I've experienced and things that I decided to write down in the moment, you know?
Well, and it's very brave of you, I'd say, because I know that you maybe only recently, in the last year or two, took up guitar and everything. Yeah. So more of your personality outside of your Prince love, definitely probably inspired by Prince, but more so your own thing. And that must have been really exciting for you to kind of discover this part of yourself.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I had kind of always had music in me. I mean, just kind of always, but I was always very content to, you know, listen to the greats. You know, Prince was always around. I could listen to Prince, and I always had my favorite bands and whatnot. But it wasn't until recently that, you know, I kept feeling this urge that to truly understand Prince, you needed to make your own music. There was a while there where he said, actually, I think it was after 1999. It was around that era where he said, I'm no longer taking interviews from people who aren't musicians themselves, because people just don't understand. They don't understand what it takes to make music. So it's really easy to judge, and like be all picky and stuff about it. Like, do you know how hard it is to write a damn song? And I'm like, actually, I think I might have fallen in that same, vein where I was very much like, I was kind of approaching everything from a consumer standpoint. Like, I can only talk about the stuff that I like listening to. But the more that I learned about music, it makes me appreciate him even more, because he did so many amazing things with so little. I think I said this in my live stream yesterday, but like, if you take the song Kiss, like the song Kiss is like 2 chords. It's like, but it's amazing. But what it took for me to kind of reach that moment was I needed to learn as much as I could about music, and then I needed to feel what it was like to do what Prince did. And I feel like that's the only way to truly, because I think at the beginning of the year,
beginning of 2021, this year.
Yeah, the beginning of this year, I did a video, because I try to do like kind of a reflective video at the beginning of each year.
Yeah,
and this year it was, essentially, I summed it up as Prince's true legacy was, I feel, showing the importance of making music and being like making music. Just I hang on a keyboard, it made a thing, or not just in covers, not just but literally like being in the trenches, making the music, writing songs, coming up with melodies, chord progressions, all this stuff, and learning as much about music as you can. And he always talked about it, like even oh my god, I remember the interview that he had, and somebody was just like, what was it like to meet Beyonce? And he was like, actually, Beyonce is really lovely. When I found out that she didn't actually, do a lot of her own music, I inspired her I told her that she needs to go learn how to play at least piano so that she can start doing more. Like that's where Prince always was. Like, I don't give a crap that you're Beyonce. If you don't know how to play an instrument, it doesn't mean anything,
Right.
And like, that's like, I took that very strongly to heart, and I tried to learn guitar and I failed. And then I tried to learn again and I failed. So I decided to pick up piano, and that actually, I picked that one up really well. And I was like, oh, I get this now. It's starting to click. And when I went back to guitar, bam, like I know how to play, I'm not great at it, but I know how to play it, and if you learn how to play guitar, you can translate that to bass, because it's basically the top 4 strings and it's a tuned down. So it's like, you can do, like, the more you learn, the more that you're able to start putting stuff out there. And like the whole album in my head, again, it's kind of giving you, it's basically just slapping you in the face with like, this is who I am. I am hard rock, I am dance, I do some electronic stuff, I have some funk on there. I'm trying to do a lot of different things with that album, but also everything on that album except for Ava Adore was written, performed, produced, mixed and arranged, everything. Like I did everything on that album myself. And I felt like that was, again, I feel like that's an important thing that I need to be able to do in order to, be true to myself and to kind of, again, pay homage to Prince with everything that he kind of put out there. So
and I'd say another impressive aspect of it to me, knowing that you're somewhat new to it, is how well like the production and everything flows and is mixed and all that. I mean, I can tell you put a lot of time into it. Being a drummer, the only criticism I'd have is like, where's the drummer, man? Give the drummer some.
No, I agree. The drums are all drum programmed. So
that's all right.
I might try and get a drummer for the next one. This one, it was, really trying to, I even have a bunch of stuff. My goal right now is I'm working on building a larger studio, and then I'm going to actually get some drums, and then I will learn how to play drums.
Oh wow.
You know, that's my goal here. Is I want to try and learn as much as I can. Drums would be that next step. I just don't have room in my house right now.
Well, I do online lessons, my friend. So
well, then you'll be the first one to hit up as soon as I get my pair of drums.
And I could
debating whether. Go ahead.
I could record some beats for you too, of course. So.
Oh, I mean, I'm all down for that. I mean, it just depends, because I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to get an electronic drum set or if I'm going to get a real drum set, because I've heard it's very difficult to mic a real drum set for recording. So,
well, fortunately, there's no expectations. So it's just like your journey with Prince. The journey with performing your own music will take all sorts of forms, you know.
Yeah, and I feel that, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. And the fact that the album it's on its way to streaming services. So I've hit send, and it's somewhere in the internet right now, and it hasn't gone live yet. So
yeah. I know.
But as soon as it's live, I'm going to be all over the place. I'm going to be talking about it. I'm going to be, sharing the music, because there's a lot of really good music on there that I'm super duper proud of in making that stuff.
Well, another song I really liked on here, My Siren. I kind of feel with the drum machine is a little more creative. I think a little more bouncy or something. I mean, how would you classify that? And can we play it for us right now?
Oh, most definitely. For me, it again, it is all drum programming, but I took a lot of extra care in that one. Like that, I think that song specifically has a lot fewer loopage going on. Like I was really trying to play around with it there. So most definitely.
And what do you feel like? What do you tell people? What's that song? What's the inspiration behind it?
Gosh! So my Siren is so funny. The inspiration behind it was that my wife came home really tired from work one day, and she came into the house, and I said, "Hey, baby, how was your day?" And she said, "I can't talk. The bed is my siren, and I must go to it." And I was like, "All right, baby, have a good nap." But I was like, wow, your bed is my siren. Oh, that's such a good line. I need to do something with that. So I made it instead of more of like longing for love, and like there's this person there and you love them and they want you to come to them, but you're kind of afraid. So that's kind of what this is. Really, it was inspired by just a funny thing my wife said when she was very tired. So
that's awesome. It makes you think about how many conversations Prince had where he was always taking down notes and they ended up being a song based on somebody's comment or thought. That's awesome. Well, I'll play that now, and then when we come back, we'll do a little show and tell here, and I'm gonna kind of pick your brain about Prince. Yeah. All right.
We touch and it begins. I never was the kind
because the band I play in, and we just had our first practice last night in like over a year, and we're trying to figure out all this stuff, like what to do with it. Because she recorded an album in the meantime.
Nice.
Not with the band. Like we've been practicing a whole set before all of this, and since we stopped playing, she started writing songs, and now on her new album, none of the songs that we performed before are even on this. So we're like learning a whole new batch of songs, which is super fun. I mean, it was just like really cool to like reconnect, and
it's kind of
okay.
No, honestly, I completely get that, because that is exactly where this album came from. Because because I have a band. I have Nick and Alcy, who I regard them as my mentors, because they, I just started off and I didn't know anything. One is a great guitarist and singer. The other one is a bassist, and they were like, "Well, no, you need to learn this. You need to learn this. This is how you do this. This is how you do this." And then when we were so far along, Alcy ended up getting a job, and he ended up getting, like, his family got sick and all. He started getting really busy. Nick got a brand new job, and it was so much more responsibility, and he started getting buried by work. And then I was like, well, I guess I'll just keep going, guys.
Yeah.
So I wrote the whole album without them.
That's awesome.
And Amador is the only track on the album that they are on as well. Like we did all of that together, and then everything else on that album is just me. So like I completely empathize exactly with what you're saying right now. Because it's exactly what's happening here. Is like when we reconnect, as soon as they are no longer busy and buried, we're going to be like, okay, I guess let's get back to all those songs that we were working on together. Because we had at least 7-8 songs that were like this close, but like then all the shit came crashing down on them.
I know.
So
yeah, I was like, so we're not going to play that song anymore? I love playing that song. No, that song's old. Yeah.
See, for me, though, my hope is that like this album is just like, this is the ground level, right? Like we're gonna get bigger, we're gonna get better. I'm gonna, like, the next album, I've already been talking with people about bringing in, like now I'm talking with you about possibly having you come in and do some drums, so like I'm looking for people to come in and do more, contribute more, because I want to also not just use it for me. I want to use it to maybe highlight a few other people, that was the main reason I even got hooked up with my band. Was I was like, you guys are so talented. What can I do to help you guys? I have this huge YouTube platform, and I'm like, you guys are so talented, but you guys don't have the platform. I have the platform and no talent, so let's trade. Let's see what's happening. And I eventually got better, so I'm not downing myself too bad.
You sound great.
But no, it's a wonder. Making music is its own thing, and I would say like, I was buried in just making music like for at least a good 2 months. I would say that this album came from like 2 months of like, I said do game time, and I know that I have a YouTube channel and all that stuff, but music was my main job, my number one priority for at least 2 months, and that's where this album came from.
That's
so
awesome.
It's exciting, and I can't wait for it to hit the stores and start getting pre-orders and sharing the music, because there's just a lot of stuff on here that I'm super duper proud of. And
all right, show and tell time.
Let's do show and tell.
Let's do show and tell. I just want your any immediate reaction or thoughts or stories on all these related things. I just thought this would be fun because I have a ton of this stuff. I'm a big record collector, as I might have said before. Okay, so starting with.
All right, wait. It's dark. I don't know what that is.
Oh, you can't see it?
I can't see it. Oh, okay, now if you back up, I see it. You have Batman cassette.
And the Batman cassette single. And then this is the movie.
Oh, that's the movie. Oh, I thought that was like the you remember when they had the long box CDs?
Oh, right.
I thought that's what that was. So that's the movie. Okay. No, awesome.
So what's your experience with Batman? Did you see it when it came out, or yeah?
I saw it when it came out. It was 1998, so I wasn't deep into Prince yet. But I remember, when the credits went and I heard "Scandalous," and I was like, "What's that?" And I loved the music. I loved "Trust," and I loved crap. What was the other song in there? "Party Man," obviously. I loved the songs that were in there. I was like, man. I honestly kept when the movie came out, I bought it on a VHS and I went back and I kept watching it, when over and over. But I would just fast forward to those scenes because I wanted to hear the music, and that was before I was even into Prince. It wasn't until a year later when Graffiti Bridge came out, and I was like, "That's the same dude! Oh my god, this is awesome!" But I think the biggest thing for me when it comes to Batman, that album specifically, is that when my son was born, my youngest son, he's actually about to turn 5 because he was born on April 27th. And he was born April 27th, 2016. So it was a week after Prince died, essentially.
Wow.
So when he was born, so when Prince died, I was like, I'm going to just start from the beginning again. And I started listening. I was like, I'm just going to go from For You to Big City, and I'm just going to listen to it in order again. So I started on For You, went to Dirty Mind, and, actually Prince, and then Dirty Mind, and so on and so forth. And when he was born, I was on Batman. So Batman was actually the very first music that my son was ever exposed to. On the drive home from the hospital, he was listening to Lemon Crush and, Vicky Wading and all that stuff. And then it was fun because then he turned about 2.5, 3, and then he fell in love with Bat Dance. And so he'll always ask me he'll be like, "Can I listen to Bat Dance, Daddy?" And I'll be like, "Go for it." So I don't know if that's because I played him Batman. It was the first real music that he had ever heard, as a day old. But but also I am mad at it, So
yeah, that's awesome. I would say for me, I remember, I think Bat Dance had been released as a single, and then he was on SNL, but he played Electric Chair, and I was just like, whoa, this is like the same album. Like, this sounds nothing like what we've been hearing as a single. And that's probably one of my all-time favorite Prince songs. I think he just destroys that guitar solo on there.
Oh, yeah.
Especially on the SNL live version of it. If you were to point to Prince's rock songs, that's one of the best for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Electric Chair is definitely up there.
Yeah. Along with, Guitar or, whatever other rock, Peach, I would call a rock song. Okay. How about these two?
Hold on. I'm trying to make the one on your left is I can't make it out.
This one?
Yeah.
This is Sister Fate, Sheila E.
Oh, okay. Is that a single for Sister Fate?
Yeah, it's a 45.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. And then we got Love Bizarre.
Nice. Okay. I was going to say I didn't recognize that cover, but it's for Love Bizarre, the 45, the single. Yeah.
Yeah. And it has Love Bizarre Part 2 on the B side. I don't remember the difference, but
I don't know. What's Part 2? I don't even think I've heard that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'll have to do some research. It says it's from the Crush Groove soundtrack.
Ooh.
So that's something you can do a little research on. See, we're educating my main man here.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. I'm going to look that up right when we're done with this. I'll go look that up.
So in general, what's your experience with Sheila and your love for her?
I mean, I didn't actually have a ton of exposure to Sheila outside of just her influence with Prince and stuff. But when I started doing my channel, I had decided that I was not just going to do Prince albums. I was going to do all his proteges and all his side projects and stuff. And I was going to try and do them in order as well. So, obviously when I hit around, the early 80s and stuff, I started doing her albums. And I think I've done all of them now, except for the latest, the America one. I haven't done that one. but I'm
Sure.
pretty sure that I've done all of her other albums up to now and until her next one, obviously.
Yeah.
And honestly, I really loved how she grew as an artist as well. Because in the beginning, she was very kind of under Prince's, shadow, and kind of living in a Prince world. And you can hear the vibe of the songs. They stayed similar. She left Prince camp and kind of was out doing her own stuff, but you could hear that she had already grown a ton as an artist and was doing her own stuff. So I actually really dug that, and I dig what she's doing now. I dig, I like that she's, she's kind of the front face in a lot of cases for Prince right now, and trying to keep his legacy alive. I wish that she got out of Sign of the Times era. But that is what it is. But I think she does a good job, and obviously she's a world-class drummer. All drummers know her. I kind of feel like Sheila was probably one of, if not the most closest person to Prince, at least for the longest period of time, coming in and out of his band. It seems that was probably one of the most genuine relationships in his career. From everything that I have heard, they were so alike that made them hate each other every so often. So essentially, and that's what you just said is true. Essentially, she would come back in and they'd be creative together, and then they'd do something to piss each other off, and then they'd split, and then they'd come back, and then they'd split, and then they'd come back, and then they'd split, and essentially when Prince died, they were on a split. So what ends up happening a lot is because I've heard it everywhere. People are like, Prince wasn't even talking to you when he died. How dare you come and do that? And it's just like, but that happened so many times. Like,
you're right.
It's not. This was just the latest. If Prince hadn't died, they would have come back together in 2017 and done something together. It's that was just the way of their relationship, and that's fine. Like everybody doesn't have to have the same kind of relationship, and that's honestly something that I loved. And I'm going on a tangent here, but that's honestly part of what I love about talking to a lot of the Prince alum and everything, is because each of them has a different Prince that they knew. He wore so many hats. If you talk to people early on, they're like, man, we were in the trenches, we were there, we were building the legacy, we were doing it. If you talk to people later on in his career, it's like, man, he was such a sage, he was such a mentor, he was like there, he taught me so much. And it's like, that's kind of the thing. So if you talk to those early people, there is much more of a camaraderie, a lot more of like, we were just best friends and we just, hung out together and that's what we did. Whereas versus later on, where it was very much of like, oh man, like he was strict, but he was fair and he was a great teacher and, stuff like that. He was more of a father figure to a lot of those people. And honestly, and like I said, that's why I enjoy getting so many different people's points of view, not just on my channel, but just listening to Podcast Juice and listening to, reading all the biographies and stuff like that, because I feel like it's important to see Prince, not just through your own eyes, but you need to be able to, take all of it in. You need to be able to take everything that this man was and really respect the entirety of who he was. People are like, but what about the time that he beat the hell out of Sinead O'Connor and all that stuff? And I'm like, you know what? I listened to the story. Some of what Sinead sounds like it might have happened. Prince says it didn't. Who knows, really? But I'm not going to be like, Prince would never do that and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I wasn't there. Who knows?
Well, so. and that exactly what you said. And that all goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is kind of the duality of his personality.
Exactly.
The perspective different people had at different points in time. Okay. How about this one? This is, can you see this?
No, 94 East. I can see that one. Yes.
Yeah. This was from the Purple Snow box set.
Yeah.
And this is their version of If You See Me, which I love. It's a great song. I hadn't really known the song until that box set came out, but then I heard the version that Prince did in the 1999 deluxe edition, which is amazing. what can you tell me about the history of that song outside of
Oh gosh,
these different versions?
Here's the fun here. I have 94 East, and I think I listened to it once, and I didn't necessarily go back to it. I've heard that one, like it wasn't written by Prince, like it was written by Pepe Willie, and that the version that you got on 1999, if I recall, the liner notes said that was Prince basically recreating the song from memory. Like, so
Wow.
he had already recorded the song and did a bunch of stuff, and he went back and he's just like, how could I do this differently? And then he basically recreated the whole thing. But recently I just interviewed Marshall Charloff on my channel, who was one of the other people on 94 East. And what I learned from him was that 94 East was essentially Prince was starting to build his name and starting to get bigger, and Pepe Willie had all these Prince recordings that he had done with Prince. So he brought in Marshall to come in and be like, well, can you take what I have of these Prince recordings and make them into songs? So essentially, that's why Marshall was even sly. He was just like, that's why it says on record with Prince in my bio, but he didn't actually perform with Prince. He accompanied the previous recordings with Prince. And that's what 94 East is. It's basically some random Prince recordings that Pepe Willie had, and Marshall came in and kind of spruced them up and made them into songs. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, that's a fun kind of interesting fact about that album, just in general. So honestly, Marshall's a really cool guy. So I enjoy it.
And Pepe has a book that I just got. I haven't been able to read that yet, but that was a Minnesota Historical Society book. So I have
5 books I need to read.
Yeah, I know. It's ironic.
That is one of them.
I've had all this time, but I've made myself so busy during the pandemic. I haven't had. I'm not exactly sitting around reading books. But but do you know the Purple Snow box set?
No, I don't know. Actually,
it's Numero Group is the label, and this was like a single they put out from the box set. It's all early '80s Minneapolis sound. Bands. No, Prince isn't on it. The only track that I think has Prince is the Lewis Connection.
No, I do remember that now. I think you shared a link with me about that before. So yes, I do know. Okay. I never bought it or anything, but I remember looking into it. Good. And I remember it being kind of on the expensive side.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I don't have the money for that. And then it kind of fell off my radar. But I do remember it now.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worth picking up. All right, just to kind of show off, I got some other singles here.
Oh, there you go.
I love the story about Kat in this this photo.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I read that recently somewhere in reading about her. How did her name come up recently? Maybe during the time the Sign of the Times box set came out. There was a lot of talk about Kat during that time, and that was around the time that she also did she recently did a Podcast Juice interview, so she pops up on there, and she's very animated. Yeah.
I will say.
And I found a great, I think she was on Sinbad with there's some interview out there with her on Sinbad, and who's the other guy? Who's the guy that wore like the raccoon hat, or
that's
the fuzzy
Adrian
hat?
Crutchfield?
Yeah, they did some interviews during the time. I think Sign of the Times was out, and I think they were on the Sinbad show together.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even know Sinbad still had a show. I guess I'm gonna have to look that up now.
At that time, no, this was like in the '80s. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I was going down the YouTube wormhole.
Different raccoon hat. That's Greg Brooks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I had mentioned Adrian Crutchfield, who was in his horn section later on, and if you remember that show where they all came out with the animal hats, that's so I was like, yeah, that's Adrian, because he was the one he wore the animal hat, and the story that he told at Celebration was like he wore that hat to rehearsal, and Prince thought it was so funny that he like bought a whole bunch of different variety and made everybody wear one at like the show that night, and I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, that is good. That's some heavy minutia for Prince fans.
Oh yeah.
All right, how about this one?
Oh, New Power Soul. That's actually the next like big album I have to review. As a matter of fact.
Oh, okay.
It's next on my list because I've been going in order.
People have this to look forward to then, and from what you know about this is not a proper Prince album necessarily. Then, right?
Well, okay. So the way I make it a joke that's not a Prince album; it's a New Power Generation album, and it is. It's basically a Prince album, but he didn't make it a Prince album. He put it under. He didn't even make it a Symbol album. He put it under New Power Generation. So, and I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure that's why that album and Exodus and like there's a couple of other New Power Generation albums that aren't like they're not available. They're not part of the streaming stuff, and they're not part of the reissues and like that stuff because they're not Prince, you know. And people signed they signed contracts to release Prince albums, not New Power Generation albums.
Oh. Okay.
So I think so. Who knows? That's just my guess. But no, that album, that's also one of those few albums that Prince did not produce it entirely himself. So like he wrote a lot of the songs and performed them. He has a lot of other people and stuff on there. But that was around the time in that era where he had Kirky J doing a lot of the post-production stuff. So,
nice.
So a lot of people are like, the album just doesn't sound as good as previous Prince albums. And in effect, they're not necessarily wrong because Kirk had a different kind of mixing and, mastering kind of vibe that he went with. So that one and Emancipation he worked on too. He did like some of the tracks on Emancipation. And see, there you go, Emancipation. And some people don't like that vibe. I thought it was good.
I love it. I love it.
It's definitely different though. It's different than your normal Prince kind of production style.
And in the artwork too of this era, I feel it's so cheesy that I kind of love it. You know what I mean? it's like when you watch Lord of the Rings now and all the effects seem kind of like weird and like very dated. The packaging and even the sound on this record is pretty dated, but I freaking loved this at the time. I actually just ordered the vinyl reissue of this.
I still love it. I still will throw on Emancipation and listen to those songs because honestly for me, like that whole third disc is just golden. Like I listen to the third disc way more than the rest of it, but also it's hard to just sit down and when I do listen to it, I do try to listen to it just from beginning to end, even though I do like the third disc way more. But what I did at that time, and what a lot of people complain about is like, it's too much music at one time. He needed somebody to censor him and edit him. And I was like, at the time I was doing something, and I was doing this with all the bands that I would listen to, because a lot of people were coming out with double albums and triple albums and stuff around the mid 90s, because CDs were an amazing invention. And, what I started doing was like I bought Melancholy and Infinite Sadness from Smashing Pumpkins, and I listened to the first disc like it was an album. And then when I was done listening to that album, I was like, hey, look at that. A whole second Smashing Pumpkins album just came out. I've owned it this whole time. And then I just listened to that like it's its own album. And I did that with Emancipation as well, where I was like, let's listen to the first disc. And I just played the hell out of that for a long time before I moved on to the second, and then before I moved on to the third. And, because I had to stretch it out because I'm so used to Prince coming out with an album and then like I have to wait a whole year. But if you give me a triple album, then I'm going to stretch it out as much as I can so that I don't have to have that void of music.
and what a important time for Prince. I think this kind of says it all in terms of like the slave tattoo in one hand, but then he's kind of a savior saint kind of right here. I mean, there's your duality right there. And then of course the unfortunate aspect of celebrating a birth of a child that ultimately didn't survive. There is darkness here, but there's so many party jams on this one too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Honestly, I think for me, I'm hoping that because there's an unreleased album that I would actually love to hear, and I'm trying to remember the name of it now, but Prince was working on a children's album.
Oh,
And
really?
he was doing it around that time, and he was doing it in honor of his child that was about to be born. So he was making a children's album. When he went on the Muppets,
Yeah.
and he did that different version of
Starfish.
Starfish and Coffee. That was going to be the version that was going to be on this kid's album. The She Gave Her Angels, that was going to be on that album too. Like, so like he was working on this, like, you know, and obviously then when what happened to his son happened, you know, obviously that carries a lot of bad, you know, emotions and stuff. But I would love to see, because if you go to Prince Vault, it has like, these were the songs that were supposed to be on that, and like that would be interesting to have that released, because it could have actually been a pretty successful project, I think.
Yeah. All right. How about this?
Oh, the book. Oh, the memoir. I actually really liked it. I will say that.
Yeah.
I really liked it, and I did a whole review of it. Like, it was probably my longest book review that I've done. It was at least 15, 20 minutes of me, because I wanted to go through it all, but try not to give it all away, because I feel like you should read it yourself. But I really enjoyed what Dan did, Dan Peipenbring. I liked the first part of the book where he was telling about his whole experience of how the book even came to be. And
that was fascinating. Absolutely.
Because you got a feel for like what it was like to be around Prince, you know, and honestly, it's similar to the same kind of energy that I give to a lot of people. Because when I'm hyped on an idea, I can't wait to do that thing. And sadly, I do have a tendency to like start something and then kind of just leave it if it doesn't pique my interest for too long. Like if I can't, but I'm also very much like Prince in the way that like, that's why I like to be able to do everything myself. Because then there's nobody else that's standing in my way of getting something done. So if I want it to get done, I'll just do it, you know? So that's kind of how my album came out. I'm like, well, I think I've learned a lot. You know, I'm going to just do this. And, you know, the songs came out really good. And, again, I'm proud of them. I even sent them to some people, and they were like, the mixing is a little bit off on this one. And then I sent it to other people, and they're like, the mixing's perfect. And I'm like, okay, well, you can't please everybody. So
and like you said, I think the story about the author, what did you say his name was? Dan?
Dan Peipenbring, yeah.
Yeah. I think his story is a great example of crossing the threshold of the personality of Prince that might be kind of cold at first, gaining his trust, and then it's with a lot of love that he tells the story about how the book came together. And
exactly,
it's really
and I think
personal.
And I think it tells a lot about where Prince's mind was in, you know, the later years as well, in terms of social justice and things like that. You know, because there's so many people who are like, but Prince was colorblind. If you listen to this interview that he did in 1983, because he was talking about, and I'm just like, did you listen to what he said in 2015? Like, why are we harping on something he said almost 30 years ago? Like, what is this? Like, what are we doing here? Like, opinions change. Like, it's cool. And even back then, like, if you understand Prince, then you're like, he was saying a lot of that because that's what it took to be a mainstream artist in that time period. And the moment that he stopped giving a crap was the moment that people weren't really playing his music as much. Isn't that very interesting? So,
and I mean, that's going to be, I think that's going to be what's really fascinating about Welcome to America.
Yes.
And where his mind was at. I mean, being in Minneapolis, it always crosses your mind. This past year, you know, what would Prince think? What would we be saying? Would he be playing a free concert at George Floyd Square right now? His sort of presence is missed absolutely during this past year, and knowing his feelings about probably what happened. There it is now with this album that's coming out. So that's giving more insight and direction. Really, I think we've had a long time without direction in this town because of the frustration and the anxiety, everything to do with what happened. We're still growing.
Honestly, I'm excited because it's a post 80s release. Again, I'm not trying to harp on the 80s. I'm not saying the 80s stink, but like I was way more into Prince later on in his career than I ever was early. So getting a 2011 album, I am so excited by that. I remember when Deliverance came out, I was like, people are like, no, but then there's Purple Rain Deluxe and all these deluxe and there's the originals and there's this. And I'm just like, I listen to Deliverance like a million times more often than I listen to any of the stuff that is nostalgic. Like, because Deliverance was 2006, I think it was. And it was so much more Prince in what I know Prince to be than, like I need to be reminded of what it was like when I was 14 and listening to music. Like, that's not what Prince is about to me. It's weird.
No, I'm excited about that. What a surprise too! It's just kind of out of the blue. It seems.
I knew it was going to happen. Oh, let me say this because I knew it was going to happen because 2021 is when the rights for the Vault and everything went from Warner Brothers to Sony. So Warner Brothers has been in charge of the releases up till now. So it makes complete sense that they would want to highlight his biggest hits with Warner Brothers. So. Right. I'm not even faulting that. He signed a 7-year deal in 2014. He signed a 7-year distribution deal with Warner Brothers. Part of that deal was what got him all his masters back. So, but they took over distribution of his music for the next 7 years, which was why when he died, they had to sign new deals. And it said that in 2021 was where Sony then took over. And I basically have been saying for years, as soon as Sony takes over, that's when we're going to get the non-Warner Brothers early stuff. That's when we're going to start getting things. And I'm very happy that I was right. I was prepared to be wrong, but I'm very happy that I was right.
It's super exciting. And I've loved all the Vault stuff that's come out. I think that's the best thing. The best thing that's come out of it is just all this music is so incredible.
100%.
To hear that version of I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man, it was just like, where did that come from? Wow.
That really early version. I loved it.
Yeah, it's incredible. And that's really one of my favorite Prince songs too. Okay, so here's a little trivia for your trivia game.
Oh no.
Okay, and at first I want to get, can you see that?
Yeah.
And you're familiar, of course, with whether you're a vinyl collector or not. You've seen that before.
Oh yeah.
And 1999, of course, though it's an '80s record, is a masterpiece.
It is a very good album.
So this is from Alan Bolio. So I know this to be true. I asked him, what was that? Like, where did you get that eyeball photo? Did Prince come over and you took a picture of just his eyeball because he had this idea? Well, if you look at
I was going to say, isn't that just a blown up controversy? Yeah.
Yeah. That eye, it's the same one. He's like, I just kind of cut it out of the controversy thing. And I was like, well, Prince was cool with that. And he's like, I don't know if he knew or not. But so that's a little trivia minutia. I don't know if that's well known.
No, I actually did know that. Kind of funny enough.
Of course you did.
Not that anybody had ever told me, but like it just looks like that's the same eye, same pose, same lighting, same everything on there. That's interesting. I guess piece of trivia for you. What is the name of the album that record also appeared on?
Name of the album that record also appeared on? What the song?
No, that record.
1999?
Yep, what? That record right there that you're holding.
What album did this also appear on?
So I was saying the record itself. With the eye and stuff.
Oh, okay. So you're saying somebody must have featured it or something? I don't know.
Oh, it was Chaos and Disorder.
It was who?
Chaos and Disorder, his last Warner Brothers album. Yeah.
Yeah,
if you look at the
it's been a
cover to
while
that
since-
one, it's the 1999 record Smashed and Stepped On.
Ah, okay. I'll have to go back and look at that. It's been a while since
Yeah.
I've looked at that. I think I always had that on CD.
It's pretty cool.
How about this? This is a bootleg version of the Black album.
Oh, nice.
I've had this for years.
How much
used
did
to
you
have
pay for that?
at the time. Oh, I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe like $15 or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I've had it for years.
Because I know some
it was,
people paid a lot of money for that thing before it was re-released in 1994.
yeah, and I mean it's kind of cool because I don't know if you can see that, but it's got the little can you see it? I mean, it's black, but you can
now. Yes, I see it.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So there's a lot of different versions of this album. I had the Warner Brothers one.
That's so cool.
And I don't think it ever officially got put on vinyl by the label. When it came out on CD and cassette for a short period of time, I had the cassette. But this is one of my favorite Prince records too. And you got to give it up for the jam. 2 ends for Wes Compton.
Yes. Yeah, that was I love that song.
The bass solo that he does on there, I don't know that there's any other bass solos in Prince's songs.
He definitely has bass solos in other songs. Even just Hit and Run Phase 1 had a couple of bass solos in that one. Yeah, oh yeah.
Maybe there's an episode for you, the top 10 best bass solos by Prince.
Good idea, actually. No, I love Two Nigs for West Compton. When I found out I loved it too is when Sign of the Times Deluxe came out and they had that song, I think it was called Walking in Glory. And if you listen to Walking in Glory, the tail end of that, there's like an amazing like organ jam, and it is what ended up becoming Two Nigs for West Compton. United for West Compton. So I thought that was a really, really cool kind of like, this is the song that originally came from. I thought it was interesting. That's the Chaos and Disorder cover.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah, you're right. That little okay.
So
I wonder if that was his
1999 out, stepped on and crushed.
And you can guess that probably wasn't his boot because didn't he only wear high heels?
Yes, I agree. It's probably not his boot. Maybe it's the boot of Warner Brothers.
How familiar with this record are you?
What is that one? Hold on. I don't think I know that cover. What cover is that?
Bobby Z.
Oh, I don't think I've ever heard that or seen that at all, actually.
I don't think many people have.
Okay.
Yes, Bobby had a record. And,
whoa, I'm gonna have to look that up now.
Which he signed for me. There, you can see. Bobby's quote to me was like, "Yeah, nobody bought that record, but back then they would still pay you for it." So And he did produce a video.
Awesome.
I can't remember what song, but there's a video from this record.
Wow. I will definitely have to look it up. I'm bringing it up on Amazon right now. Let's see. So the songs aren't streaming, but let me see if I can get a. No, okay, it's not telling me a track list either on Amazon at least. But no, I will definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, you could probably. I bet there's at least the video on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this record.
There it is. Okay, so it's Given to You, Lie by Lie, River Run Dry, because that's right, because he did write that song. Grey Heart, The Meaning, Alacia, Movement of Love, and You Are Everything, and Believe.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, I can't. It is what it is.
I don't have to check. No, I'm going to check it out though, because what year did that come out?
What year?
Yeah.
1990.
Wow. Okay. So that means I missed it then. So I'm going to have to go back and review that. because I didn't even know it existed.
This is like a weird bootleg that I have. I think the coolest part, can you see this?
Fuzzy Tone Reality, I see that.
Yeah. Okay, the track listing, it's got Manic Monday on there. It's got a techno version of Lemon Crush, but it also has Sex Shooter with Vanity singing, which I always thought was pretty interesting. Yeah. But my favorite track on here that I play a lot, is called Possessed. Do you know that one?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the kind of the song that Bobby and Brown Mark, I think, are jamming on in Purple Rain, when he kind of
it's in the background when Morris is talking to Apollonia right before Beautiful Ones.
Yeah. And I would love all that interstitial stuff from Purple Rain, like the moaning, the cassette tape of the moaning and the piano stuff. I would love to hear more of that. All right, one more, and this is really just so I can show off to you a little.
Okay. Sounds good. Oh, nice.
So you got Jimmy Jam. No, it's Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'm hoping if Janet ever sees this, I can get her to finish it for me.
Get the trifecta.
But I was a stagehand at the Super Bowl when Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis curated all the live music that we had outside all week. And so they were kind enough to sign this for me.
Very cool.
But I mean, you got to give it up to Janet for probably being the closest in terms of popularity in utilizing the Minneapolis sound, I think.
Oh, I think so. I mean, she definitely was. She identified that there was kind of genius in that sound, and it was a good move for her to use that to kind of catapult herself and make herself different than what I think was expected of her. People would have just expected her to continue in, kind of the more Michael Jackson route. And I think by bringing in Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, it definitely set her apart. I think that it was definitely a good move on her part.
And do we know about any relationship between her and Prince in terms of even just friendship, or, I mean, did he kind of stay away from the Jacksons?
Not that I know of. If somebody does know something, let me know. But I mean, as far as I know, he didn't necessarily mess with the Jacksons that much, but obviously his influence is there because he influenced Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who then took that and made that into something. There's a lot of people who say, and I don't know if it's true, but there are a lot of people who say that Prince wrote "What Have You Done for Me Lately?" Like he wrote it, or he did something with that, and then Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis then brought that to Janet. But he has no credit on that. But there's a lot of people who have talked about that, and I have no idea the legitimacy of that claim. So please don't take that as me saying he did it. But I've heard people talking about that, and I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I know that there was some Prince, "Ready for the World" to me is like an obvious Prince trying to, hey little buddy.
Yeah, it's yours. It's like I got mine too.
No, but at the time there was some, trying to capitalize on the sound, "Ready for the World" or even Maserati, and
yeah,
I think Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis kind of ran with it and then really made their own sound with a lot of other stuff that they produced.
Well, I feel like there's a difference between. I think there's it's a matter of authenticity. Like if I decided that I was going to start doing huge in Minneapolis sound stuff. Yes, I'm a Prince friend, but I'm not from Minneapolis. I didn't, that's not, it's not technically part of my background, even if it's something I enjoy. So, it wouldn't necessarily come off as authentic, I think. At the same time, there are people who have taken elements or are inspired by that sound and then create something new. I think that's totally fine. But that's why a lot of those people who came out and they were just doing exactly what everybody else in Minneapolis was doing. That's why they didn't necessarily stick around all that much. So
I do love the "Ready for the World" album though. So Not going to hold it against them. But it does sound exactly like what somebody would do if they were trying to sound like Prince. So
it kind of does.
But that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Well,
that's honestly a thing with that's a thing with making music is like, I've, being who I am, and I've said that like Prince inspired me to make music and whatnot. I had some people who have heard the music and then they listen to it and they're just like, this doesn't sound anything like Prince. And I'm like, was it supposed to? Like, I wasn't trying to sound like Prince. I'm trying to sound like me. Like, come on now.
People are so weird. Their expectations are always kind of like, in their own mind, ultimately. Well, hey, man, this was super fun. It's so cool to catch up with you today and kind of flesh out a little bit of what you're all about. And this is kind of like when a new comic book would come out and all of a sudden Batman would show up in the comic book to kind of help, attract some of the followers or whatever. Yeah. So you're my Batman.
I will take it. I will take it.
Yeah. No, but this is great. I like I said, it's always a joy to watch your shows and see some of your chats and to kind of be a part of it like this. Was a really honor for me to have you here. And I hope you can,
and honestly, connect. Like, we know each other, so feel free to hit me up anytime. It doesn't have to be a recording. I'm good. Yeah, absolutely. And anytime you need a trivia guest, I don't know if I can stand up to some of them, but I got my Prince trivia pretty good. I'm on it. You're the next one. You're the next one.
And I am doing. It's such a bummer because we were going to do this Prince event at a roller rink that's closing now. Actually, there's a group in town called the Purple Playground. And we were gonna. My dream was to DJ at this roller rink that's closing, and that was going to be in June. But I think they're going to move it somewhere else. So it's awesome to be a part of that crew and part of the Prince fam here and representing the Twin Cities like we can, and we really appreciate everything you've done to toast the man, the little brother as I call him. All this time. So keep up the good work, man.
Thank you so much, Danny. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, man.